Hi there, welcome back. We're in my kitchen again where I share with you some of my favorite recipes or those most requested by my friends and family. Today we're going to be making a fresh apple cake with some really nice warm fall flavors in it. If you are not someone who likes to spend a lot of time in the kitchen but you want something homemade, this is a great recipe. It's going to take us about 10 minutes to throw it together. It's as simple as it gets. So let's get started. So first thing, 2 apples. The recipe says 2 cups, but I use 2 medium to large size apples. You don't even have to measure. You can use just about any apple you want that's on the crisp tart side. Jonagold, Winesap, Braeburn, Granny Smith, Honeycrisp is what I'm using today. I would stay away from Red Delicious for their what I think is lack of flavor and the fact that the apple would get mushy in the baking process. So we're going to just start cutting these up. I'm going to quarter them, take out the seeds and the fibrous stuff in the heart of the apple. And you know what I love about this recipe? You don't have to peel the apples. When I make an apple pie or something, that's the only thing I dread is peeling those apples. You don't have to do this with this particular recipe. I'm being careful because, like I've told you before, I'm quite good at cutting myself. My husband will sharpen the knives in the house and not tell me, and I'll go whacking at something and take off the end of my finger once in a while. So there we go. So I've quartered them, and then whoop, I'll show you those in a little bit. So our apples are quartered, and then take those quarters and just cut them in thirds. And like I said, don't peel your apples. This is the mixing bowl we're going to use, and I'm going to chunk the apples in the bowl, just about like that. I would say about no bigger than an inch or a little bit smaller, but you want to see the chunks of apples in your recipe. Now, if you've got a Granny Smith and a Braeburn apple in your produce store in the refrigerator, feel free to use it. It's okay to mix apples when you're baking. So there are our apples. That's about 2 cups. The next thing we're going to do is pour our sugar over the apples. This is 3/4 of a cup. The original recipe called for 1 cup, and I've cut it back to 3/4, and I think it's perfectly fine. Just stir the sugar into the apples just a little bit. Then we're going to take an egg and we're going to crack it over the apples. Only I like to put my eggs in a separate dish and then put them into my mixing bowl. You never know what you're going to find with an egg. So do that, and it also keeps out the shells. So just kind of stir your egg in. Okay, we have a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. I'm using sunflower oil today. You can use just about anything that doesn't have a strong flavor. I wouldn't use extra virgin olive oil, although there are some cake recipes that call for that, but this is not one of them. So just stir that in. Then I like to add a teaspoon of vanilla. There we go. Now, we've got 1 cup of flour. All I'm going to do is sprinkle the flour over the top of the apples. And remember, when you're measuring flour, to not take your measuring cup and scoop into your flour bin. You will get way more flour than the recipe needs. Always take a spoon and spoon your flour into the measuring cup. Okay, next we're going to use a teaspoon of baking soda. And if your baking soda is kind of lumpy, break it up with the back of the spoon. You don't, because those lumps sometimes won't mix in, especially on a recipe like this one. We're really not doing a mixing with an electric mixer. Okay, we've got cinnamon. What did I do with my half teaspoon? Right here. I like to round it because I like a lot of cinnamon, but at least a half a teaspoon. 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. This one I kind of level off. Nutmeg can be kind of strong. And then we're going to add some salt. Put that back on there because I'm going to use it in a little bit to dust. We've got a half a teaspoon of salt. I use sea salt. I like sea salt. Unless the recipe calls for kosher salt, then do that. I was going to show you something. A friend bought me these. These are measuring spoons. They stack, and they've got a oval end and a round end. And so many times, spice jars, you can't get the round end in. And I have come to love these. They work really well, and I don't have to pour out the spice and then measure it in my hand or in a different container. I can get my spoon right in the jar. So anyway, thank you, Renee, for that gift. That was appreciated. Okay, we've added the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the baking soda, and the salt. So we're going to stir. Now, if you don't have any nut allergies, I like to add walnuts or pecans to this recipe. I'm not going to stir it all together, just almost. Today I'm going to put in some walnuts. Calls for about 1/2 cup. Just chop them, not real fine. And you can really add these nuts at any point. You can add them with the apples in the beginning. Or you can add them now. And like I said, if you don't like nuts or you have allergies in your family, then just don't add them. You can also add raisins. Raisins are a nice addition to this recipe if your family likes raisins. Okay, so I am just going to stir these nuts in. This is really thick. The batter just clings to the apples. I have greased my pan. This is a 9x9. You can use a 9x9 or an 8x8. I like to use glass for this recipe. You can use metal pans, but if you use metal, be really careful not to use the non-stick dark metal pan or your apple cake will get really dark in the oven before it's finished. So look at how thick this is. I mean, it comes out literally in a glob. Get every last bit. There's still some more. I am always wanting to get the very last of it. Okay. So now you're just going to spread this in the pan, and you really have to work at getting it to cover the bottom of the pan evenly. Just spread it all around. There we go. We're going to bake it in a 325 oven because I'm using glass. If you're using metal, it would be 350. So we're going to put it in the oven, and I will bake this one. This is the one that I made yesterday. I added powdered sugar on top. It looks a little spotty here because I did it about 20 minutes ago before we started the video. And really, if you're going to dust it with powdered sugar, do so right before serving it, and it will look the best because these apples make the cake so moist that it ends up soaking up the powdered sugar. Now, this is the simplest way to serve the recipe, but if you want to make it more of a dessert, this is good for breakfast or with a cup of tea in the afternoon. But if you want to make a little fancier dessert, then you can serve it with some whipping cream. I whip some up. I'm going to cut my cake. This cuts into about 9 really nice pieces. Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of this and set it on the plate. It's really moist, so it might feel, I don't want to say sticky, but it's just super moist. The apples have absorbed into the batter and it's really nice, kind of like a bread pudding almost. Add some whipping cream. I think I'll do nutmeg. A little sprinkling of your favorite spice. And there you have a really simple fall dessert that tastes delicious. I hope you try the recipe, and if you're enjoying my videos, please hit the subscribe button, and if you also hit the bell, it'll let you know when I've got a new video out. Thank you.